All right, this is verse number 5 of the Atma Upadesh Satakam. We are reading the commentary by Guru Nitya titled That Alone. Verse number 5. This verse is about the eternal light and the immortal witness. Worldly people, having slept, wake and think many thoughts. Ever wakefully witnessing all this shines an unlit lamp, precious beyond words, that never fades. Ever seeing this, one should go forward. In this fifth verse, we are being given a distinction between the horizontal and vertical attitude implied in contemplative life. And the commentary goes as follows. It is said that the British philosopher Bishop Berkeley had a maxim, think with the learned and speak with the vulgar. Those he referred to as vulgar were people who were not philosophically inclined or disciplined. In the present verse, Narayana Guru speaks of ulagar in somewhat the same sense, to mean those who are not philosophically critical in examining life. Even Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And not only do we examine our life, we also ponder on high values. Most people live in a world of getting and spending, where their only lot is to wake up and sleep and conduct themselves as their fancies dictate. In verse 2, the Guru spoke of Jagat, the several worlds of interest that come and go, which is the inner organ, the senses, the body, the many worlds known by direct perception. Everything, when contemplated, is the glorious embodiment of the sun that shines in the sky beyond. This should be known through relentless search. The free translation is, by relentless search, one should realize that the inner faculties, the senses, the body and the worlds of our interest are but transformations of the glorious substance of the sun, shining in the void of the Absolute. And that is verse number 2. There he spoke of Jagat, the several worlds of interest that come and go. In the same vein, the term lokam is to be understood as the passing universes of interest. Like many other biologic species on Earth, human beings are caught between alternating spells of geotropism and heliotropism. When the sun sets, our energy wanes and we go to sleep. When the sun rises, our energy returns and we wake up to engage in the day's activity. We do not know who puts us to sleep and who wakes us up. Where does our motivations come from and who supplies us with energy to carry out the intentions of the mind? The Guru speaks of a light that intently looks on whatever we do. What could that light be? A picturesque mention of such a light is made after the narration of a legendary episode in the Maitreyi Upanishad. Verily, the gods and the devils, asuras, being desirous of the self, Atman, came into the presence of Brahma, the Creator. They did obeisance to him and said, Sir, we are desirous of the self, Atman, so do you tell us. Then, meditating long, he thought to himself, verily these devils are desirous of a self, Atman, different from the true one. Therefore, a very different doctrine was told to them. Upon that, fools here live their life with intense attachment, destroying the saving raft and praising what is false. They see the false as if it were true, as in jugglery. There is a recurring idea in several Upanishads of the two kinds of knowledge that influence our life on earth. One is called avidya, ignorance, and the other is vidya, knowledge. Living according to the motivations of one's ego-centered interest is called avidya. It is mentioned in the Isha Upanishad that such people are living in darkness. Giving one's attention to transcendental ideas is called vidya. Paradoxically, it is mentioned in the same Upanishad that those who are attached to transcendental ideas live in greater darkness, as it were. It is hard to determine when someone is wise and when they are not. A passage to this effect comes in the Katha Upanishad 2.5, the Munduka Upanishad 1:2-8, and the Maitreya Upanishad 7:9. Quotation: those abiding in the midst of ignorance, self-wise, thinking themselves learned, hard-smitten, go around deluded, like blind men led by one who is himself blind. The Guru's reference to people of the world who sleep, wake, and think many thoughts should be seen in the light of these Upanishadic passages. He instructs us to turn to that which witnesses all our thoughts and deeds, which he compares to an unlit lamp that is nonetheless mysteriously shining. In the Maitreya Upanishad, we read the following description. Quote, assuredly, the nature of the ether within the space of the heart is the same as the supreme bright power. This has been manifested in threefold wise, in fire, in the sun, and in the breath of life. Verily, the nature of the ether within the space of the heart is the same as the syllable Om. What is referred to here as fire, earth, and breath is not three separate entities, because in the same Upanishad it says, quotation, adoration to Brahma, who dwells in all, who remembers all, bestows all upon the worshipper. With a golden vessel the real's face is covered over. That do thou, O Pushan, uncover. Unto the eternal real, Satya Dharman, the pervader, Vishnu. He who is yonder person in the sun, I myself am that. I myself am he. Verily that which is the sunhood of the sun is the eternal real. That is the pure, the personal, the sexless, Alinga. Of the bright power that pervades the sky, Nabhas, it is only a portion which is, as it were, in the midst of the sun, in the eye and in fire. That is Brahma, that is the immortal, that is splendor, that is the eternal real. In the commentaries of the previous verses, we have seen how our minds are influenced by the three modalities of nature, which are triggered by our incipient memories. In the present verse, the difficult problem of transcending these modalities is broached. In chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Arjuna is confronted with the same problem. He asks Krishna, by what marks, O Master, does he who has transcended those three modalities of nature become recognized? What is his conduct, and how does he transcend those three modalities of nature? To this question, Krishna answers, light and activity and delusion when present, O Pandava, Arjuna, he is not dissatisfied, nor hankers for them when absent. The Karu mentioned in verse 1 appears in the Bhagavad Gita as the Bhutatman, the manifesting self. The three aspects of the Karu are self-luminosity as knowledge of knowledge, its manifestation as the psychodynamics that animates a person, and the eidetic world that is presented to the knower. These three aspects are described in the verse from the Gita quoted above as light, prakasham, activity, pravritti, and delusion, moham. Although the Absolute does not undergo any change, the negative principle of the Absolute gives rise to a superimposition of these triple aspects. In Vedanta, this kind of modification is called nirvikara. Narayana Guru is preparing our minds to arrive at the notion of the unmodified Absolute, which he is going to present in verse 7. In this verse and the next, he focuses our attention on the alternating phases of consciousness. The natural state of the Absolute is its self-founded brightness, Swayam Prakasha. The Guru equates this with the lamp which is neither lit nor ever dies. Activity and delusion, which are also attributed to the manifesting self, Bhutatman, in this verse of the Gita, constitute the changing world in which the common man is caught as if in a snare. In the Consolations of Philosophy by Boethius, the 16th century Roman philosopher, Philosophia describes the unfortunate state of man. Alas, how this mind is dulled, drowned in the overwhelming depths. It wanders in outer darkness, deprived of its natural light, sick anxiety, inflated by worldly winds, swells his thoughts to bursting. Boethius is also quoted as saying, the foreknowing spectator of all events. So there is a witnessing aspect, or being just a spectator. The remedy for this tragedy which the Guru suggests here is to see the light within that witnesses everything. In the Mundaka Upanishad it says, two birds fast-bound companions clasp close the self-same tree. Of these two, the one eats sweet fruit, the other looks on without eating. Of the self-same tree a person sunken grieves for his importance, deluded. When he sees the other, the Lord Ish, contented, and his greatness, he becomes freed from sorrow. When a seer sees the brilliant Maker Lord person, the Brahma source, then being a knower, shaking off good and evil, stainless, he attains supreme identity, Samya, with him. The experiencing sensory mind complex and the animating self in us, born of the same principle, are described as two birds that are like intimate friends, clinging to each other. According to Shankara, they are the individuated self and God. They dwell in the subtle body, which holds in itself the tendencies and impressions created by desire, ignorance, and action. Of the two, the individual soul enjoys the fruit of action. The other, God, who is by nature eternal, pure, wise, and free, who is omniscient and has Maya as his limiting adjunct, does not taste but merely looks on. As the individual self is totally immersed in samsara, the world of delusion, it repeatedly becomes despondent. It is believed that such a soul, degraded by its own false identification, is born again and again in inferior wombs. Perchance, with the compassionate guidance of a Blessed One, the individual may someday, by purification, discipline, and meritorious life, achieve the sameness of vision, to see the true light that shines within, recognizing, I am this bright person who is the self of all and is the same in every being. So this is the self-recognition. I am this bright person who is the self of all and is the same in every being. Then he or she would shake off all notions of duality, such as merit and demerit, and the two kinds of action that constitute bondage. Having become freed of all blemishes, the self will attain the absolute equality that transcends all duality. The Gita says of such a state, those, however, in whom that unwisdom in the self has been destroyed, to those wisdom shines sun-like as the ultimate, the absolute. Those having that absolute for reasoning, that for the self, that for finalized doctrine, that for supreme goal, they go to a state of final non-return, all their relativistic dross being cancelled out by wisdom in chapter 5, verses 16 and 17 of the Bhagavad Gita. Compare the opening clause of the second verse given above. those that have that absolute for reasoning. And the opening line of the present verse, worldly people sleep, wake, and think many thoughts. The existentialist philosopher Martin Heidegger says that the common lot of all human beings is their facticity, existentiality, and forfeiture. But in the Gita, it is specifically mentioned that there is no forfeiture when one's reasoning is unitive. Unitive reasoning is well-founded, regulated, and directed to its object, as opposed to discursive reasoning, which is accompanied by the dissipation of interest. Natarajaguru, in his commentary on the Gita, says, such a reasoning establishes a direct bipolar relationship with the object of its search. It does not get lost in endless ramifications. Bipolarity, once established, is conducive to further reasoning along the same lines, culminating in the highest good, in the self. The instruction given by Narayana Guru in the present verse is to establish a bipolarity with the ever wakefully witnessing Absolute, the unlit lamp in us, which is precious beyond words. However, the Guru knows how difficult it is for an uninstructed and undisciplined person to raise himself or herself to that sublime state of perfect attunement with the Supreme. In the next verse, he grieves for the sad state of man. And that is verse number 6, which is comprehending the incomprehensible. One has to wake up, then go to sleep. One has to eat food and embrace. Thus, in this way, many ambivalent urges arise. Therefore, who is there to comprehend reality's one changeless form? The free translation of verse number 5 is as follows. One should conduct oneself in the light of the eternal lamp, which witnesses the sleeping, waking, and discursive cogitation of those who are wedded to their own worldly affairs, and which itself has neither any beginning nor any extinction. This is very similar to the Mandukya Upanishad, which speaks of the 4 states of consciousness, the waking, the dreaming, deep sleep, and the transcendental. And the 4th, that is the Turiya state, it inclusively transcends, not exclude, doesn't exclude, it inclusively transcends all the other 3. So this is called the Avasthatrayi Sakshin by Shankara. So this verse number 5 approximates to that of Shankara in the analysis of the states of consciousness in locating the substratum of the Absolute, common to waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So the Absolute is therefore defined as Avasthatrayi Sakshin, the one who is a witness of the 3 states, which are wakeful, dreaming, and deep sleep.